Three, two, one, we are live. Okay, here we go. It is Wednesday, the 27th of October, 2021, and I'm Mary Grace, and this is Real Talk with Mary Grace, and we're live. So, welcome everybody. Good to see you. It's been a few weeks, and I put up a video on Monday, or letting everybody know what was going on. And today I'm going to be talking to you in depth about my experience having had COVID and also having my 84-year-old dad get COVID and recover. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to give you some pretty good details about what I experienced and then also about how to prepare. Because based on the experience that I just went through, it's very important that you do that. And so as you're coming in on Facebook, please tag people that you know that you think want to hear this. And then also make sure, please, that you like the show, hit the hearts, whatever it is on Facebook. Also follow the channel. And so you can like the show and follow the channel. Same thing on YouTube. Give a thumbs up and then also subscribe to the channel. If you are on Clout Hub, I'm on channel 111. Subscribe to that channel as well. And then I'm on Twitter, Real Mary Grace 1. Everything else is Mary Grace Media on the other platforms. Good to see everybody. So I'm going to give people a few more minutes to come in. It's been a long time since I broadcasted. And I didn't give you a time the other day when I said that I was coming on Wednesday. So here I am. It's been quite an eventful few weeks. I will say that. The last time I broadcasted was 3 weeks ago, if you can believe that. It was on the 6th of October. And here we are about to go into November. It's hard to believe. But none of us could have predicted what happened over the last few weeks. So as you're coming in, please say hello. One thing too, when you come in after the fact, especially on YouTube, if you leave a comment, I can actually see those. I can see them on Facebook too. They don't make it easy to go back through all the comments on Facebook, but it does make a difference when you leave a comment, when you share. If you share in groups on Facebook, then people can see this. The information that I'm going to share with you today actually could save somebody's life. I mean that sincerely, that the preparation and the details that I'm going to give you could end up saving a life. I've actually had people tell me that the preparation that I was talking about for the past few months in terms of getting your meds and having everything ready, people have told me that because of me, they had everything ready and they didn't have as bad of an experience with COVID as they would have had they not been prepared. So that's what I'm here today to talk to you about, is just to get you prepared to know exactly what to do. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm just somebody that gathers information, and now I've had a firsthand experience myself of going through it. And then also I have taken care of my elderly dad, who is in arguably the highest risk category for COVID, for mortality. So I think that what I'm going to share with you will be valuable. So I'm going to start by telling everybody my personal experience, how it started, and what I did to treat it and what I wish I had done differently. And then I'll talk a little bit about my dad. Okay. You might want to take notes. Okay. So as you know, a lot of you know, I went to Oklahoma on the weekend of October 1st. And I had 2 flight cancellations. I ended up in Oklahoma, then I ended up in Kansas. I was kind of all over the place, North Carolina. I finally got home, and it was a little bit taxing because I missed a lot of sleep on that trip. And I think that probably did a number on my immune system. And so on the 6th of October, I did a show. And this is, I'm going to tell you, some of you maybe don't even want all the details, but I'm telling you this so that you can be aware of what to look for. And it's similar in some cases to the flu. But what I found was that there are just so many like ups and downs and twists and turns. And that's the part that I think people need to be prepared for. Now, so on the 6th of October, I was doing my show. And as I was sitting here, I started feeling soreness in my back. And again, I had been traveling. I did quite a long show. And so I didn't think anything about it. I just thought, okay, I'm kind of achy. I need to move around. And so I went to the gym and I was doing my like normal workout. I was doing some pull-ups and, weights and things like that. And at the gym, I remember distinctly having this feeling that my energy is gone, like I'm done. And it wasn't like when you get a little bit fatigued at the gym and you think, okay, I'm just going to go do some stretching and then I can get back to cardio, whatever. Like, it wasn't like that. It was just like, I just knew. It was like Holy Spirit was telling me, you're done, go home. So I ran out of gas at the gym physically, went home, made dinner for my dad, and I was still kind of achy. And then within a couple of hours, I had a fever. And I was just, I just had the chills, fever, and I just went to bed. And I was trying to stay up because I had people here working, and it was really hard. Okay, so I went to bed, and then it didn't even occur to me that I had COVID. Didn't occur to me. I just thought, I'm run down. I have a fever. I never go to bed early. I'm going to bed. I'm going to hydrate. I did a couple things that I would normally do. I took some electrolytes, things like that. So the next morning, my dad had an appointment with his lawyer, and we couldn't miss it. So I took him to his appointment, took him to the grocery store, and it was all I could do to get home. I knew I wasn't feeling well. I probably shouldn't have been out in public, but it was one of those things where you just have to power through. So that's what I did. And then again, that day, I just kind of was not feeling great. I don't take like a lot of over-the-counter drugs. So I was just trying to get superfoods in my body. I was trying to, I think I might've taken an Advil because my body was aching a lot. That was one of the things that I couldn't even deal with. I had, that night when I went to bed, I was aching and it felt like I had pneumonia. Like, that's how bad my back hurt. And then of course I had just been to the gym, and so I was thinking, I guess I overdid it, even though I didn't do anything different. Maybe I just overdid it. Okay. So next morning I went and had an IV drip. I had a recovery drip. I took my dad with me. Again, didn't think I had COVID. That gave me, so this is like Friday. On day 2, really, day 3, I guess. So I went and had a recovery drip, which has a lot of, vitamins and minerals. It's B12, glutathione, things like that. And that actually gave me a big burst of energy. The fever kind of went down. And then that night I had so much energy. I did a worship set with some people on Zoom to pray for our friend Matt in Arizona. I'll come back to that story in a minute. But I just had like all this energy. And that was pretty much the beginning of the end for me, because I stayed up late and went to bed. And then I was awakened in the middle of the night with the pain in my body. I'm telling you, it felt like I was being trampled by horses. My rib cage, my whole back. I didn't have a cough. I I had a low grade fever. I didn't have congestion. I just hurt. I hurt so bad. And I've heard of this happening to other people as well. It was strange. It was bizarre. And the last time, I'm just going to tell you guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't been this sick in over 20 years. The last time I felt this sick was when I had pneumonia. And, and so, um, yeah, so that was Saturday. So Friday going into Saturday, barely moved all day Saturday. That's when it occurred to me I might have COVID. so so I dragged myself over to Walgreens and got the test. And at that point, I had started the regimen. And I'm going to tell you what I had on hand and how I got it. Okay. So at that point, I started the regimen, could barely move, spent the day on the couch watching football and dozing and being in a lot of pain. I actually took an Advil. Like I had to buy it. That was the other thing I had to buy because I just don't keep that stuff in the house. So that's how much pain I was feeling. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the mistakes that I made again. I'm coming back to that. So I got the test. It was a home test. It was actually recommended to me by the telemedicine provider that I was using out in Arizona. And they said it's the same test that they use in their office for the rapid test. It's Abbott. It's made by Abbott. And so I got it at Walgreens. And so that was my weekend. And somebody just mentioned fibromyalgia. So just to rewind a little bit, I actually have an autoimmune condition, Hashimoto's, and I also have a history of bronchial asthma. So those are two things that may have made it have more of an impact for me. You know, I don't consider myself high risk, but I guess in some ways I was. I got hit. I think I got hit with every single thing that you could get almost. Somebody just mentioned Advil, that they heard it wasn't good for COVID. I think in the very beginning, they were saying that it wasn't. I think that's changed. I don't think it's as much of a concern as they were saying it was. Okay, so that was let's see, Saturday. So it started Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, same thing. I was just drained. And by this time, I had started the whole regimen. I had ivermectin. I was on hydroxychloroquine. I was taking vitamin C. I was taking zinc. I was taking marshmallow root, which is for the lungs. At that point, I had not gotten on the budesonide. And so this is something that I am telling you, that I should have had prepared. I didn't have that yet. We had actually gotten the prescription called in and they were out. And so it didn't come in until Monday. So I'll get to Monday in just a minute. So the pain was unbelievable. I didn't have a sore throat. I didn't have a headache. My whole body was in pain. And then on Monday, I started having nausea. So I had a fever, I had nausea. And the nausea that I had, I've never had that. I've never had nausea like that. I could barely move. Like I could barely go from the bed to the bathroom. Like it was really pretty bad. If I had somebody on the outside looking in, I might have done things differently, but you guys know I'm basically on my own here. All right. So So I had to go all this time, like I'm actually going out doing stuff, which is, I know that's like a big no-no. I had to go pick up the budesonide. They didn't have a nebulizer, found out that you needed a prescription for a nebulizer. So at 9 o'clock that night, I was at Walgreens getting a nebulizer. And by the time I got home, I had a fever. I couldn't even open the box. I just went to bed. So the other thing that I tried to do on Monday was I tried calling and getting monoclonal antibodies. I tried to call. There's like a registry that's lists places that provide them supposedly. And the first two places I called in my town, they had no idea what I was talking about. And that was all I had energy for. I never got to the next part um, of calling the university hospital. I'm glad I didn't go there, um, but uh, but anyway, so that project, so project antibodies, was abandoned because I just didn't have the energy to make a call. It's crazy. So Monday night, I get back. I've got the budesonide. I have the nebulizer, but I can't. I can barely move. I just went to bed, and so I got started on Tuesday on the budesonide, and I literally, like, that was all I could do. That's all I could do. I I I have to say, I probably should have put out a call for help because from Monday to Thursday, it's kind of a blur. I was feverish. I had like this debilitating nausea. Um, I just could barely move. I don't even think I really took my meds during that time. I'm telling you guys exactly my experience because I hope that it helps you to be prepared so that you don't get kind of behind it like I did, that you lead out and take care of everything like right at the beginning. I had stuff, I had things that I had already ordered. I didn't have everything. And and so the other thing is my dad, he's 84. He's high risk. He has diabetes. He's 84. He's overweight. He has high blood pressure. So, I was trying to keep him away from me, and he's really old and he's hard of hearing. So it wasn't that easy to ask him to help. Like I could ask him to get me a glass of water, but I couldn't send him out to Walgreens or whatever to deal with prescriptions. That's just not his flow. Okay. Now, so I'm looking at your comments while I'm talking, but so that's my experience, but we're not done yet. So that whole week, like Monday to Thursday, is just a blur. Feverish, debilitating nausea, could barely move. I don't think I put a single bit of food and barely any liquid in my body. So that's really not the ideal way to handle this. Yeah, I just was like, I don't know. I don't know what day it is. And so Thursday, um, I'm going to go back to the antibodies, the monoclonal antibodies. I still thought that I needed to try to get that. So I managed to call the University of Virginia hospital and I asked them about it. And this is what they said. They said, we do have it. A referral is required. And we only do 6 a day. We only take 6 a day. And if you get a referral from an out of network provider, it takes longer to approve. And at that point, I knew that I was running out of my window for getting the antibodies because you're supposed to get it within the first 10 days. And so, I was pretty bummed about that. And I didn't really want to go to the university because, it says right on their website that they use remdesivir, that they they don't use ivermectin, that they don't use hydroxychloroquine. So I'm actually glad that I didn't go there, I would have had to go and sit in the parking lot at the urgent care and try to get somebody to see me and then refer me to UVA to get the monoclonal antibodies if I had gone that route. Now, thankfully, my friend Caroline mentioned to me that her brother went to school with somebody in Richmond who was running a monoclonal antibody clinic in Richmond. It's like an hour away. And so I called them and I asked them if I could get the antibodies, and they said yes. And they actually asked me if I could come in that day. And so I said yes. So I dragged myself to the car and drove myself an hour to the clinic and got the antibodies and got the fluid. Turns out I was pretty dehydrated. Who would have guessed? Yeah, of course I was. And I was there for a couple of hours. And here's something you need to know about if you get monoclonal antibodies. This happened to me, and then it happened to my dad. When I got home from getting the antibodies, first of all, I felt like a great burst of energy from the antibodies and from the fluids, of course, because I was dehydrated and my electrolytes were low, of course. And so I felt this energy. I felt really good driving home, the best that I had felt in over a week. And the strangest thing happened, though. The minute I walked into the house, my whole body started shaking. Have you ever been so cold that you start shivering and you just uncontrollably shake like you can't control it? That's what happened to me. So I managed to get in the shower. Thank God I have a bench in my shower because I was able to just sit there under the warm water. Got in the shower, got in my jammies, went to bed, and had a fever. So I didn't know that was going to happen. It was almost like maybe like a detox thing. I don't know the mechanism that caused that, but I do know that the next day I was feeling a little bit better. Okay. It was very good to get the antibodies. So that was Thursday. So Friday morning, my dad tells me that he's not feeling too good. 84 years old. So I'm just coming out the other end of the fog, and he tells me he's not feeling good. So I sat him down and I got him started on the regimen right away. I started him. Oh, at some point, also I started the Z-Pack, the antibiotics. I think that was, I can't remember. Anyway, I hope this is helpful. Even though I was in a fog, I'm just trying to put the pieces together to help you guys know what I did. Marvin, it was too far for a cab. It would have cost me like $300. So anyway, went to get the antibodies. So that morning, my dad tells me that he doesn't feel good. So I get him started like right away on the protocol. And he's a very good patient. He'll do whatever I tell him, take whatever I tell him. That doesn't bode too well, though, if I ever had to send him to the hospital. But I kept him home. I managed to keep him home. So I started him on the protocol, watched him like a hawk all weekend, got him on the budesonide. I had him on it like 3 times a day. I had him drinking fluids. I knew by then that he needed electrolytes because they told me at the clinic that my electrolytes, that even if I felt like I wasn't dehydrated, like normally, like if you can go to the bathroom and pee, then you don't think you're dehydrated. They said that's not a good indicator when you're running a fever because your electrolytes just get sapped by the fever. So make sure that you're using something like vitamin water or coconut water or Pedialyte or something like that. We actually have an electrolyte mix with my superfoods that I use, and that's pretty awesome. So when I was able to start consuming things again, I started drinking that. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, my dad is going through the first stages of COVID. And first thing Monday morning, I called the antibody clinic and they were able to get him in that day. So I drove him to Richmond, about an hour, to the antibody clinic and got him the antibodies and the fluids. And this is very interesting, guys. I want to tell you about this. When we got him to the antibody clinic, they found out his age, they were taking all his vitals, and then they ask when you make the appointment if you've been vaccinated. And, when they asked me that, I just said not yet because I didn't know how they were going to react. You never know. And, if they were going to like turn me away. They didn't care. And then when I got him there, when they got him there, and they got him in the chair and they started doing all his vitals, when they found out that he wasn't vaccinated, they were so happy. And I'll tell you why. Because they're doing clinical trials at this antibody clinic. And what they're doing is they're doing trials with different brands of the antibodies. It's basically all like Regeneron. It's just different companies that are making it. And so they have to go through the trials. So they asked him if he would participate in their clinical trial because they said that it is almost impossible to find anybody over 50 that has not been vaccinated. They said 95% of their COVID patients that come in are double vaccinated. And so my dad was like a purple unicorn, and amazing. Like, so they signed him up for their study. And so they got the antibodies in him, got him the fluids. We were there a little bit longer than I would have liked because they were getting him into the study. But anyway, when we got home, the exact same thing happened to him that happened to me. He started having the shakes. And I managed to get him, in his chair and gave him some soup. And then he went to sleep and he slept in his chair like all night. The next morning he was in the same spot. It was like he was coming off like a 3-day bender. He was just sound asleep the whole night. And so we kept him on the protocol. I kept giving him the budesonide. And then on Tuesday night, how are you guys doing? Is the play-by-play okay? I feel like I've talked about this a lot, but this is new for all of you. So I'm transitioning from my experience with COVID to my dad's. I will tell you that when I got home from taking him to get the antibodies and getting him settled, I was exhausted. So that's the thing, the fatigue. Oh my gosh, I was done. And so anyway, so the next morning, we get up, like I was checking him, doing his budesonide treatments. The other thing I forgot to tell you is that the pulse oximeter is key because you have to check your blood oxygen levels. It's the little thing they put on your finger to test your blood oxygen levels. Now, the doctor told me that the ones you get from the drugstore can be off by 2 to 3 points. So you have to get a count over time. All right. But here's what happened. So Tuesday evening, I tested his blood oxygen and it was 90. And it had been up around the 90. I think the lowest it had been was 93. All right. And so it was down to 90. And I was like, I'm not liking this. And then I tested it a little bit later. It was down to 88. And he was breathing pretty heavy and he was running a fever. So at that point, of course it's after dinner. there's no place I could take him. I felt like he needed oxygen. And so I started making calls, and I called the local medical supply place, and I talked to their after hours answering service. I told them it was urgent. I had a provider that was willing to write a prescription for the oxygen, but I had to get the details. I had to get them to call me back to know where to send the orders, right? And so, I was kind of like watching the clock, and nobody was calling me back. And I was watching my dad, and I was contemplating and praying and thinking, what do I do? I can't take him to the ER. I can't. The urgent care was closed. I live in kind of a small town. The if I took him anywhere, I would have lost him to the system because he was COVID positive. And so I was faced with a real dilemma. And at that point, I was actually scared. That was the first moment in his sickness that I was scared. I will admit, the week before when I was super sick, I had a few moments where I was just going, "Okay, God, I need help. I'm not doing well." I wasn't so much scared as I was just sick. But with my dad, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at this, knowing what I know about the system, knowing that if I take him to the emergency room to get oxygen, the very first thing they're going to do is take him from me. And I will not be allowed to be with him, even though I've been living with him in the same house, right? The logic just isn't there. And so I was starting to get really scared. And so, I was texting with friends. I was talking to a good friend of mine. I said, I'm really scared. She goes, don't let your dad see that you're afraid. And and so, I was just trying to like come down off the ledge. And I called my friend Anne. You guys know Ann Vandersteel. I called her and I told her what was happening. And at that point, I will admit, I kind of was losing it because I was really not knowing. It was about 9 o'clock at night. And I was thinking my only option is to get him somewhere that can get him oxygen. So thank God for Anne, because you guys know that one of her sponsors is Synergy Health. And that is nurse practitioner Brian. He's been on her show before. Not Brian Artis, Brian Weinstein. So she got Brian on the phone, and he actually put in an order for oxygen, for home delivery of oxygen. And long story short, it was a little bit of a bizarre situation, but the oxygen arrived by midnight. And so we were able to get my dad on the oxygen. Now, somebody asked, what about a fire station? My other thing that I was thinking of doing was calling 911, because the EMTs are about a block from our house. And I have had them here in the past, like if my mom fell, they would come and pick her up. They didn't want to take her in or anything like that. But again, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. If I call them and say, I think he needs oxygen, the dilemma would be that they would say, okay, we're going to have to take him in because, he needs more oxygen overnight, whatever. And so again, I was like, well, they would have to kill me first. But, and so that was where my dilemma was. So thank God for Synergy. And I'm telling you this, I'm going to go back and tell you I'm going to go back over the points about where I got stuff, what you need to make sure that you can get it, when you actually need somebody to write a prescription, when you can do it on your own, those kinds of things. I found that to get oxygen delivered to the home after hours, the only way that I was able to expedite that was by having somebody on the level of Synergy who had access to the same oxygen delivery companies that like hospice uses for home delivery. So 24/7 access. I didn't have that. When I called the medical supply place and I talked to their after hours service, obviously they didn't take me seriously because nobody ever called me back from there, which is crazy. Um, and so I've been told that any consumer can go into a place like that and get oxygen and get the tanks and the little thing that goes in your nose, that you can get that. You don't have to have a prescription. After hours is a completely different story. So that may be true. I may be able to walk into the medical supply place and rent a tank. Or something like that. But that doesn't last that long either. So the thing that they brought for my dad, it's a machine, and it plugs into the wall, and it can run oxygen. Like he was on 5 liters. It can run oxygen 24/7. And so, so that was something that I learned in the process. Now I need to take my breath and get collect my thoughts here. Uh, so so that was Tuesday. So that was on day 4 for my dad. So I got him on the oxygen. Um, that helped. His numbers were back up. He's been on and off of the oxygen for the past week since we got that. And so we haven't had to carry the oxygen around with us. He just does it when he's at home. The other thing that Synergy did was he changed his antibiotic. He put him on a different antibiotic, more powerful, and he also had him go to budesonide every 2 hours. So that was what you would do for pneumonia. Okay. Diane on YouTube says it's an oxygen concentrator. That was what he has. Exactly. Yeah. So the key things for him being elderly were he went on a different antibiotic. I'm going to tell you in a few minutes what that was. He put him on every 2 hours dosing um, of budesonide, and then we got him on the oxygen. And so those were the key things. And so here's the thing. So that was last Tuesday. Now, I want to back up and tell you a little bit more about my story. Now, one of the things that I was really feeling having the virus was the fatigue. Just unbelievable, just like dragging around. And I thought I was going to come back last week and do a show. That didn't happen. I was so fatigued. And so one of the things that I did, I decided, I was talking to my friend who runs the clinic where I get the IVs. And she said, you really need to get the ozone therapy. And so last week, I went in and got, I think it was last Tuesday, I went in and got ozone therapy. And that was key. That was one of the keys. Here's how ozone therapy works. There's different ways to deliver ozone into the body. This is what I did, because the clinic that I went to has this ozone machine that does this. The idea behind ozone is that it has the extra oxygen molecule. And so it like hyperoxygenates your blood. And so it can kill the bacteria. So the bacteria in the lungs, the viruses, it conditions your red blood cells. It's a very powerful treatment that's been around for over 100 years. They've been doing it in Germany and other parts of Europe for quite some time. If you Google ozone therapy, the first thing you'll see is that the FDA says it will kill you. So just be aware of that. The type of ozone therapy that I got is called, it's MAH. It's an acronym, and I should have written it down, but it has to do with your blood. Okay. Um, and so what it does is they draw your blood, and they put it in, goes into a little bottle, and then when the blood is in the bottle, the ozone machine injects the ozone into your blood. And I actually have a picture of it. It's just a little bottle of uh, blood. But so let me show you. So what it's doing is it's just super oxygenating your blood. And then they put the blood back into your body. So the blood, it just hangs, like it goes into that bottle. See that? So that's my dad. And then the machine is right there. So the ozone goes from the machine into your blood. And then they swirl it around, they mix it together, and then they put the blood back into your body. So last week I went and I had 2 passes of that. So that means that they did it twice. So they pull the blood out, they put the ozone in it, they mix it, then they put it back into you. Did it twice. So that was a big oh, thank you, Sunset Chaser. Yeah, major autohemotherapy. Thank you, MAH, ozone. So that was my experience with ozone, or that's the ozone treatment that I got. And if you can find a regenerative medicine clinic, that's the kind of place that does it. Functional medicine, regenerative medicine, that kind of thing. All right. So yesterday I went back. Oh, so that was my first experience. That really helped me a lot. Now let's fast forward with my dad. I thought that he was doing pretty well with his recovery, continued to take the meds. But what I noticed over the weekend was that he was starting to like slow down and get pretty confused. And he was just missing key parts of his routine. And he's very set in his routine. All right. So he gets up every morning, he goes and checks the newspaper, he comes in, he does his crossword puzzle, he has breakfast, he drinks orange juice, he makes coffee, like every morning. He takes his medications, they're all counted out and everything. So I noticed on Sunday that he was kind of out of it. And then Monday, a little bit more. And then yesterday, I got up to get ready to go to my ozone appointment. And he was so out of it, like he didn't get his newspaper. And I mean, I was at the point where I was going, do you know what day it is? He was really out of it and just very sluggish and sleeping a lot. And so I thought, okay, the fatigue is crazy. So I just thought, okay, maybe he's just fatigued. And one of the things that I think is that I realize now is that he doesn't drink enough. And that happens a lot with elderly people, apparently. Not just elderly, but it has more of an impact if you're elderly. Anyway, so I went to get my ozone therapy, and they asked me how my dad was doing, and I told them what was happening, and they said, as soon as you're done here, go get him and bring him in to do ozone therapy. And so, and I wasn't sure. I didn't even think to ask them because I thought that he was still like in the quarantine window. And so anyway, they were fine with it. They said, go get him, bring him in. So I took him in yesterday. They tried to get the ozone started on him, and they couldn't because he was pretty dehydrated. So, like if you go to give blood and you're dehydrated, the blood won't flow. So they couldn't get the blood to flow. So we decided to give him an IV, an immune boost IV with like high dose vitamin C, zinc, a whole bunch of other stuff. And so we did that while he was in the office. That actually helped him. It turns out he was pretty severely dehydrated. So I just pumped him full of electrolytes and, just made him drink all afternoon, this morning, etc. I brought him back this morning for ozone at 9 o'clock. So he got an ozone treatment. It worked this time because he was hydrated. He got his ozone treatment this morning and he got a recovery IV um, with glutathione, B12, a whole bunch of other stuff. And so, yeah, so that is the that's the situation that we're in now. So coming home this afternoon or coming home yesterday, even just getting the fluids in him was very helpful. And then doing the ozone this morning and then another IV. I think that this is what's going to like turn the corner for him. Now, I'm telling you all of this. I really hope that it's not too tedious, but I really want you guys to know what's out there, what's possible, and the impact that it's having for us, especially if you are older or if you're taking care of somebody who's older. I just want people to know what your options are. And I started out by telling you how I handled COVID for me. I do feel like I made a lot of mistakes. My biggest mistake was in thinking in the beginning, I just don't think I have COVID, and I didn't start the regimen right away. That was my biggest mistake. And so I think that if anything that I'm telling you helps you, I think it could actually help you save your life and or a loved one's life. I really do. And so this is the part where I want you to take notes if you haven't already done that, because I'm going to give you some details about what it is that we got ahead of time, what I gave, what I took, what I gave my dad, and some of the extra treatments that we got. Okay. Now I'm going to start by telling you what we had on hand. And these are the things that we prepared beforehand. And there are several resources that you can go to get a telemedicine appointment if you cannot find a provider in your area, or if your doctor will not work with you on implementing and preparing the FLCCC protocol. That's basically what we used. The first thing that I would do, if you have an established relationship with a doctor or a nurse practitioner, it can't hurt to call them and ask them, if I get COVID, will you be willing to treat me with this protocol? Now, if they say no, we only use the CDC protocol, then you say, awesome, you're fired. Now, don't I don't know if I would sever that relationship, because you might need them down the road for oxygen. So one thing that I would say is, okay, I understand if I get into a situation where I should need oxygen therapy at home because I prefer not to go to a hospital, would you be willing to prescribe that? So start by saying, here's the protocol that I know is working. It's the protocol that Joe Rogan used, and it's the protocol that over 100 members of Congress and their families have used to avoid hospitalization for COVID. Are you willing to do that for me and or my family? I can send you all of the information. I can also send you the story about Joe Rogan. Would you be willing to look at this? So I would start with that if you already have a relationship with a provider. Now, it just happens that I had already fired our provider because they weren't willing to accommodate my dad with his hearing disability during COVID. And so we didn't really have an established relationship with anybody here. That is why we ended up using Synergy. Okay. We also used another provider to get some things lined up ahead of time. but I'll come back to that. Uh, the other provider that my dad has is the VA. The VA in this situation is useless because all they're doing is pushing the shot. And if you have a VA doctor that actually thinks reasonably, then great, by all means use them. Our situation is such that, there's no way that I could even get in touch with them. Like, I can't count on the VA. I can't count on being able to call them. I tried to log into the portal yesterday to message them, and the whole thing was down. Couldn't get through on the phone, couldn't get through on the portal. You can't count on them. So, first step, try to find a local provider. If that doesn't work, first step, try to find them. Ideally, they'll be willing to help you with the protocol. If they won't do that, are they willing to prescribe oxygen if you need it any time of day? All right. So moving on, telemedicine. The flccc.net website has a list of providers that you can contact ahead of time to set up an appointment to do an evaluation and get all of the prescriptions that you need lined up ahead of time. Different providers will charge a different amount for telemedicine. I believe that some of them will bill insurance. Not all of them will. So you can't count on that. And I'll talk about the insurance piece in a minute. The flccc.net, they give you the list. I don't know that they endorse every provider there. It's more of a resource. And so don't get mad at Dr. Pierre Corey or one of those doctors if you hit a dead end. You have to understand that everything that is happening right now is so far outside of the norm that it's like we're almost back in pioneer days where everybody has to take responsibility themselves. And so this is not a simple scenario where you just call the doctor and say, hey, I think I have the flu. Can you call in some Tamiflu? That's not how this works. And so it's essential. I cannot stress enough that you get all of your ducks in a row now, while you're well, while you're healthy, while your family members are healthy, before they get the COVID. Be prepared. Get the oil in your lamps. Take what I'm saying to you very seriously. I'll give you just one example. Like I told you earlier that we had the budesonide prescription called in to Sam's Club. My dad has insurance, so I had arranged a telemedicine appointment for him to get medications lined up ahead of time. And so it was called in on a Saturday, and they were out. And so they had to order it. And so it took I think Friday, it was a Friday, took 3 days, like over the weekend. They didn't get it until Monday. So this is what I'm saying. Because of the scenario in which we find ourselves, because of the atmosphere of, what do you call it? Medical tyranny that we find ourselves in, you have to take much greater responsibility and be more proactive than you've ever been. And so it's essential that you go to flccc.net. They have a protocol on there. It's a sheet that you can print out. All right. And you can get with one of those doctors, do a telemedicine appointment. I'm going to tell you a couple of the places that I have found to be good. One of those is Synergy. I don't know if they're on the flccc.net. It's Synergy DPC. Let me see if I can find it. And we are going to put together these links. Okay, so it's Synergy Health DPC. Synergy Health DPC. The way that the telemedicine works most of the time is that you go in, you set up an account, you schedule an appointment, you prepay. All right. And then you do the telemedicine appointment. And then, it's just like any doctor's appointment. They're going to ask you to list your medications and things like that so that they can review that, so that they're not going to do anything that's contraindicated to something that you're already taking. Again, for the most part, it's out of pocket expense. It's an out of pocket expense. One thing that I have heard about that I have not used is myfreedoctor.com. I believe that that is all free and that it's on a donation basis. So if you have the means and you use them and you can pay them, that's going to help them cover the cost for somebody else who cannot pay. And this is important because you need to budget for this. All right. Again, we've left the reservation when it comes to what we've all known and come to be familiar with in the world of medicine and insurance and prescriptions and pharmacies. Everything is off the table. Like they're not functioning the way that they should. And so getting the telemedicine appointment, getting all of your prescriptions lined up ahead of time is absolutely essential. The flccc.net protocol is what seems to be helping people the most. So there are things on that list that you can acquire on your own, the supplements, and there are things on that list that you need a prescription for. Some of the providers will call in prescriptions to just a regular pharmacy like Sam's Club. Some of the prescriptions aren't being restricted. For example, I was able to get a prescription from Sam's Club for hydroxychloroquine. They don't seem to have that blacklisted right now. They are not prescribing, they're not filling prescriptions for ivermectin. And so again, this is where I wish I could give you like a one size fits all. Just go here, go down this list, get everything from one place. You're not going to be able to do that. That's why you need to start now. That's why, like today, as soon as you're done with this show, you need to get your list. You need to start going down that list, getting the appointment, get the telemedicine, get the prescriptions for the things you need prescriptions for, and get the ball rolling, especially for the ivermectin, because most of the places that are doing it are compounding pharmacies. You may be able to find a compounding pharmacy in your town that will fill ivermectin. So that's going to be another one of your phone calls, is you're going to call around to the local pharmacies, the locally owned pharmacies, and see if they are willing to fill prescriptions for ivermectin. Legally, they're not supposed to ask you what it's being prescribed for. You'll kind of know when you get on the phone what kind of attitude they have. It won't take long to figure it out. In the absence of having a local pharmacy to fill the ivermectin, you're going to have to go through the mail. Again, it's a minimum of a week to get the stuff. So going back to what I said earlier, start today, because you need to allow about 1 to 3 weeks to get everything you need in your COVID kit. I can't stress that enough. Start now. Now, here's the thing. If you get everything, it's not going to go to waste, because most medicines have, a minimum of a 1-year expiration. If you get any kind of respiratory issues, you're not going to do what I did. If you get symptoms, you're not going to do what I did. You're not going to wait and say, oh, I don't think it's COVID. You're going to start the protocol right away. Okay. A lot of people take the medications preventively. They take the ivermectin I think 2 times a week. They take the hydroxychloroquine according to the instructions. I think for most people, it's once a day. Um, so, um, so I am. Somebody's asking me to put it in print. Delia's on the show. I think Delia's watching and she's taking notes. So we are going to give you the notes. Uh, Again, and I'm sorry that you're having a migraine. So let's just pray that Lizzie's migraine goes away. The key thing is, like I said, I wish that I could just give you like like a 3-point list. Do this, do this, do this. Call your doctor, get the prescription, you'll be fine. It's just more involved than that. All right. So let me go down the list of the things that you absolutely have to have, and that you have to have a source for it before you get sick. All right. So the first thing is you need to have a source for somebody that is going to prescribe you oxygen if you need it, especially if you have an elderly person that you're taking care of or high risk. Second, you need to have a source for a budesonide and a nebulizer. In some places, a nebulizer is available by prescription only. That's important. The other one is you need to go ahead and find a source for the monoclonal antibody infusions. Some places you can get it at a hospital, but anytime you put yourself into a hospital environment, you are taking a risk of being separated from your family and put into like what I would call a medical hostage situation. So just be aware of that. The other places that do it tend to be private clinics. The clinic that I went to does not charge anything for the infusions for people who don't have insurance. They are also doing clinical trials, and they're actually paying the trial participants. The clinic that I went to takes patients who are COVID positive and who have been exposed to COVID, who are in the risk categories. So even if your BMI is a certain amount, you can go and get the antibodies if you're over 12 years old. So line up your oxygen, line up your budesonide and the nebulizer, line up the monoclonal antibodies. Because if you get sick, you don't want to be like me and not have the energy even to find out where to get it. All right. That's really important. I know somebody in Phoenix who actually prepaid for the antibodies for her and her family in case they get COVID. Every clinic seems to be run differently. So I can't tell you exactly how the clinic in your area works. Some places that do IV treatments are also doing the monoclonal antibodies. Another name for that is Regeneron. That's what President Trump took. Okay? So those steps are really important to take to get your ducks in a row. All right? So now let's go back to your appointment, your telemedicine appointment. For the telemedicine, you're going to go down the FLCCC list. You're going to ask for prescriptions for everything that requires a prescription. So that is going to be I'll send you that, Delia. That's going to be the ivermectin, the hydroxychloroquine, the antibiotic. The antibiotic that my dad was put on was clarithromycin. It wasn't the Z-Pak. It was a longer course of antibiotics. The other thing, there's a couple other things they put him on, but I'm not going to recommend those right now because I think that was more of an individualized thing. So prescription, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, antibiotic, clarithromycin is what he got, budesonide. Those things require a prescription. Those are the things you want to get started on right away and get those prescriptions called in. If a person has insurance, it's, in my opinion, good to go ahead and use the insurance to pay for some of those prescriptions. There's also good RX coupons. For example, for the budesonide, it's pretty expensive, but if you have the coupons, it's going to bring the price way down. The dosing on the budesonide is important as well. If the doctor prescribes 2 times a day of budesonide, my dad's insurance covered it. When he wrote a prescription for every 2 hours, the insurance didn't cover it. So just be aware that that might happen. Okay. Now, so let me see, where are we on the prescriptions? So get your doctor lined up. Make sure you can get oxygen either from telemedicine or from from your local doctor. Okay. Find out where to get your antibodies, get your budesonide and your nebulizer all lined up, and all of your prescriptions. And then go on to the FLCCC protocol list and get all of your supplements, the vitamin D, the zinc, the C, all of that. All right. Next thing, try to locate a place that will do IV therapy. Somebody mentioned that in their area, they have an IV clinic that will actually bring the IV to your house and administer it there. Okay. In our case, we actually went and got the IVs. That makes it a little bit more complicated because if you are COVID positive, some places aren't going to want you. Some places aren't going to want you to come in. So it really just depends on your area. But one thing that I will continue to stress, because this is so important, is that you get on top of all of this from the very minute you get symptoms, and you be proactive to the point that you never set foot in a hospital. So the goal here is to avoid you or your loved one ever going to the emergency room. Ever. That's the goal, because we know what's happening to people when they get to the emergency room. If you take a family member who is COVID positive to the emergency room, they will get taken from you. You will not have access to them. And vice versa. If you go to the emergency room yourself and you're positive, you will be separated from your family. Okay? So just know that. Now, medications. Oh, the one thing that I didn't mention earlier was the pulse oximeter. Okay, so you need to buy that as well. You can buy those at a drugstore. It's the little thing that goes on your finger. Okay. Now let me look at the comments here. How are we doing? Am I staying on track here? How are we doing? I'm looking at some of your comments. Yeah, Vicky says avoid them all. You don't want to be tested. Well, I did the home test. So yeah, that's up to you, whatever you decide to do. Joanne is saying Regeneron does 4 shots, 200 each arm. That's not how we got Regeneron. The antibody infusion that we got was an IV. It's in a little bag, and then it was followed by an IV of fluids. Okay. Again, I don't know how every clinic does it. So I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor. I'm telling you our experience. I know I have several friends who've actually ended up with COVID and also have gone to get the antibody infusions. And it really is a game changer. Okay. And so when it comes to these therapies, there may be different ways of administering it. The point is that you get it into your body. That's the point. And for example, I was talking about the ozone therapy before. The ozone therapy that I had, they draw your blood, they add the ozone to it. It super oxygenates your blood. They put the blood back into you. In some places, they do ozone. They put it into your body cavities. Okay, there's different ways to administer ozone. So so that is just something to be aware of, right? It's not always going to be um, it's not always going to be the same everywhere you go. Now, an IV is an IV. If you go and get an IV, they're going to put an IV in your arm. They're going to put the needle like in your forearm, in the back of your hand, something like that, and they're going to intravenously give you those nutrients. All right, the vitamins. Now, Diane said something good about the pulse oximeter. She said you can choose one that is highly calibrated. Yeah. So when you go to a doctor's office, their pulse oximeter is going to be a high quality. And so that's something you want to look for, is one that doesn't have a lot of fluctuations. Now, Chicky says, I feel so overwhelmed. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. So the reason that I'm doing this show is so that you can go back, you can listen to this. You can go back and listen to this as many times as you want. We are going to have show notes, and you can take the notes. You can also go to flccc.com and get their list of their protocol and get their list of the providers that they know have been willing to treat patients and treat them, prescribe things ahead of time to help them prepare. All right. And so just take your time. I would make a priority of making these phone calls and getting these appointments set up. All right. So it's going to be different in every area as well. Now, somebody's asking about the Rhinocort. That's a good question. I did use Rhinocort. That's the budesonide nasal spray. I did use Rhinocort, and it seemed to help, but it doesn't do what the nebulized budesonide does, because the nebulizer gets it into your lungs, and that's the key. Because the big thing about this virus is that it's an inflammatory virus, and so the zinc, the hydroxychloroquine, the ivermectin, those things are helping to keep the virus from getting into your lungs. But if you've heard about these spike proteins, that is, I'm not an expert on this. Dr. Brian Ardis explains it really well. But the whole idea is that you want to keep the inflammation down as much as possible, and you want to keep your body from having a strong inflammatory response. And so one of the things that I've seen with this, and that people need to be really, really aware of, is that it's not. Now, some people will say, "Oh, I had coronavirus. I was better in like 3 days." I think that's the case for a lot of people. For some people like me, it was like the whole gamut. I mean, everything. Like I had all these crazy different symptoms, and it was just every day was different. And so one thing that I would say about this virus is that it's unpredictable. It's predictable, but unpredictable. It's not a one size fits all. And so you may get the virus, and you may get the virus, and in 3 days it's like you feel like you never had it. One of the things that I would be careful of, and we've heard of this happening a lot, is that there's almost like a rebound effect where you think you're completely fine. And then, like on day 6, that's when the cytokine storm starts. And that's where people find themselves like flat on their back. So I would say if you get it and you start the protocol, I think the people who do the best are the people who stay on the protocol through like 10 days of the virus. That's just something that I've noticed. Okay. Somebody on YouTube is trying to figure out where on the FLCC website to locate the list of providers. Let me see. So it's flccc.net. Let me just look. So you see that? You see there's a tab for protocols on there, FLCCC Alliance. That tab is where you find the list. Okay. Protocols. They even have it translated into other things. If somebody can find it on that website for her, I would appreciate it. Tell us what tab to go to on that website. That would be helpful. Now, I told you that you can go and do a telemedicine appointment and get prescriptions for everything. Now, there is something that some people have done that has worked, and that is that they have used a pharmacy from India, and they've ordered everything that you need a prescription for from that pharmacy. It takes about 3 weeks. It's called alldaychemist.com. All Day Chemist. And I believe they're listed on the FLCCC list. Alldaychemist.com. Brian Artis talks about them, and he has actually gotten zinc from them. And he said that most of the zinc in the world is manufactured in India. So it's legit. So I know people who've ordered from them. It takes about 3 weeks. You have to pay with your checking account. They don't take a credit card. I've heard of several people that I know personally who've ordered from them. Now, I don't get any kickback or anything like that. I'm not an affiliate. I'm just telling you other people's experiences. alldaychemist.com. Now, when you go there, when you go on that website, you have to know what medications you're looking for. And again, you can get antibiotics from them without a prescription. When you go to check out on All Day Chemist, it's going to ask you for the prescription. You just keep going through the checkout process, and it's going to let you skip that. Okay? That is a legitimate website that people have used successfully. The other one is another pharmacist, another place, I think in Canada, and I think they get a lot of their stuff from. I think they get their stuff from India, but it's riverpharmacy.ca. Riverpharmacy.ca. So again, Delia is she's compiling notes for us, and we're going to put this stuff in the notes. All right. Now, somebody asked a question about the antibodies, and that is, if you're just at risk, can you get the antibodies? Now, my clinic that I went to, the answer is yes. Yes. If you think that you've been exposed to COVID, to somebody COVID positive, if you are in one of those risk categories, you can go and you can get an antibody infusion. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do or what to say, but based on my experience with the clinic, the conversation might go something like this. You call them, they say, this is Clinical Research Partners, and you say, I'm in a high risk category and I was exposed to COVID. Now, do you know for sure if you were exposed to COVID? Not necessarily, but if you're out in public right now, there's a good chance you were exposed to COVID, because whatever strain is going around right now is so contagious that I think in good conscience, you can say I was exposed. So they're not going to, the clinic that I went to didn't ask, like they're not going to contact trace. They weren't asking, oh, who was it? Where are they? Can we talk to them? Can we see their positive test? They weren't contact tracing. They're kind of taking your word for it. That clinic that I went to, I think I mentioned, they don't charge for the antibodies if you don't have insurance. So that's a conversation that, for example, if somebody has one of those insurance policies that has like a $5,000 deductible, it's like a catastrophic policy, that might, the person making the phone call and being asked if they have insurance might say, no, I don't have insurance. That's a decision for each individual to make on how they handle that. So my point is that if every state is different, every clinic is different, some of them are private, some of them will take you if you've been exposed, some of them will take you if you are at risk, some of them will take you if you're like a frontline worker and you just get exposed a lot. The clinic that I went to said that we can come back every 90 days and get more antibodies. It's going to be different everywhere you go. Like I said, I went on the national registry for monoclonal antibodies, and I clicked on the places that supposedly gave antibodies in my area, and they had no idea what I was talking about, except for the University of Virginia. And I would not want to go to them. There's no way I would take my dad there. But the point is, it's not one size fits all. And I hope that you guys are taking away what you need from this. The biggest thing that I can emphasize, regardless, even if you don't get everything done, my biggest thing that I want to emphasize to you is do everything possible within your power and within your budget to prepare everything you need ahead of time to avoid ever going to the hospital. I can't stress that enough. And take aggressive action right up front. Get the meds into your body, get the protocol into your body right away. Don't wait. Don't wait like I did. Okay? I messed up. So that's really key, because, we're dealing, unfortunately, with people on the front lines who with people, because like me and other podcasters, we get messages a lot from people who waited, who are in distress because they waited 2 weeks and they tried to tough it out. And then they end up at the hospital with a pulse ox of like 60. And then at that point, you're going on a vent. And the hospital does not have any interest in getting you out of there. They make thousands and thousands of dollars a day in COVID dollars for having somebody in there on a ventilator. Okay. Now there's a lot of helpful tips in the live chat, especially on the YouTube. So I'm going to encourage anybody who's watching the replay to click on live chat and go back and just listen and read all of the chat. People are giving some incredibly helpful tips in the live chat. All right. Let me just go back and read some of this. So somebody, an Idaho Garden Girl, said that her pharmacy recommended a nebulizer. She got it from a CPAP machine store. Yeah. So some places, I think you can just go buy a nebulizer. Some places, you have to have a prescription. Sherry is asking on Facebook, the infusion centers I'm seeing listed for Northern Lower Michigan are through hospitals. Is that a problem? Sherry, the issue that we have with the hospitals is that if you go into a hospital, if you go to their COVID clinic and you are positive, that's it. Like your family cannot come with you. They will isolate you. So you have to be extremely cautious, and make sure that you make it very clear that you are there for antibodies only, that you do not want to be admitted, that you're not there to be admitted. It's do anything you can to stay away from a hospital. If that's your only option, maybe call them ahead of time and see what their procedure is. Any information you can get up front, I would recommend that you be proactive, take notes, call these places, see what their procedure is. If I'm COVID positive, what's the procedure? How long does it take? Is it part of the hospital? Do I get admitted to the hospital? I would ask those questions. And if they can't answer to your satisfaction, then keep looking for a place that will do what you want. All right. Now, somebody is saying on Facebook about the FLCCC. They said, I scheduled a phone visit with an Arizona doctor on the list. That doctor called within a day. Her clinic already has linked with a compounding pharmacy, and that pharmacy will mail your ivermectin within 48 hours. Yes, the doctor and the RX, the prescription is out of pocket, but this is well worth having it on hand. So let me talk about budget here for a minute, guys. And this is where I know this show is going on long. The notes will be on YouTube, and I will probably put them in the comments on Facebook as well. So this is something that I want to emphasize. The thing that is coming to light here, in case you haven't already been thinking about this, I've thought about it a lot for a long time, but it's become more to the forefront of my mind since having this experience, is that I believe that if you haven't already figured this out, this experience with COVID and with the way that hospitals and doctors have handled this, and pharmacies, it should be a massive wake-up call to every single person on the planet, especially in the Western Hemisphere, that we have been lulled and seduced and dumbed down by the medical industrial complex, which is comprised of the hospitals, these medical groups, the pharmaceutical industry, and the insurance industry. And people have gotten lulled into this mindset of just thinking that if you have a job and you have insurance, that the system is going to take care of you. And the conversation that we've been having for the past hour and a half should indicate to you very strongly that that's not actually the case. And people have gotten into the mindset that, if you have insurance, if you have a good job, that you just call the doctor, they call in a prescription, they call in basically whatever the insurance will cover, whether it's the best medication for you or not. And you go and you pick up your prescription and you pay $5. I want to submit to you that system is set up to harm you. And the mindset that people have gotten into, that your healthcare shouldn't cost anything, or that it should be a minimal cost, is a dangerous one, because it puts you at the mercy of the system. And we have seen with absolute shock and horror that the system actually wants you dead. They want you to be either a customer for life or just dead. And unfortunately, it's kind of interesting. It looks like I have a lag in my stream since I started talking about this part of things. Unfortunately, that's not a healthy mindset or system to be a part of. It's the same with food. People have been brainwashed to believe that you're supposed to pay as little as possible for food. And so then people just end up eating GMO deep state crap. Okay. It's the same thing with, your health. I'm going to submit to you that this is a wake up call that should put everybody in a completely different mindset about how you care for your health and how you prepare for a medical emergency. Anything outside of a critical car accident where you have to have surgery. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the day-to-day maintenance of your body and the proactive preparation for what to do if you get a flu or a sickness like this or a respiratory infection or something like that. People are asking about the cost of the therapies that I mentioned. It's not cheap. I'm going to be upfront with you about that right now. But what I will say is that I think that everybody would do well, if you haven't already done it, to start budgeting for healthcare the same way that you budget for a car payment or a utility payment or whatever it is. It's your body. It's given to you by God, and it's your responsibility to steward it. Unfortunately, people have gotten into the mindset that it's somebody else's job, that if you put in your time and you're part of the corporation and you have the insurance and everything else and you have a doctor, people have become these passive consumers of the pharmaceutical and insurance industry. And so I'm really going to encourage you to have a complete mind shift on this. Part of what we're doing right now, the exercise that we've just been through, is getting you personally to be proactive and to understand that you're going to spend money out of pocket for the things that we're talking about. Now, if you do have insurance and it's going to cover this stuff, by all means, use the insurance, right? My dad has Medicare. My dad has good insurance. So when I did the telemedicine appointments, yes, the things that we could put on the insurance, absolutely we did. I'm not saying don't use it if you have it. I'm saying that it's time to change the mindset of the way that you view your own health and protecting your health and taking care of yourself when something does happen. And thinking really seriously, rethinking what it is that you put into your body to manage those things. So for us, I decided, and I've been using, IV therapy for quite some time now. Any regenerative medicines that I can find, any procedures that I can find that are designed to help my body do what God designed it to do. That's why I use superfoods. Same thing. But so going back to the ozone therapy did not put anything in my body that isn't made by God, right? It put extra oxygen into my body. And just that extra oxygen allows my blood and my body to fight infection on a supercharged level. Do you see what I'm saying? And so for me, the cost of getting the ozone is worth it. And so get into the mindset. I'm going to encourage you to start budgeting and putting money aside that you can invest in your health. Because if you think about it, a lot of people spend $200-$300 a month just going to drive-thrus. But then if they're told that, an IV treatment costs $125, they're just like, what? No way. Think about that. Think about that attitude. What is it that you're putting into your body that you're actually spending hundreds of dollars a month on? It's just little smaller amounts that add up over time, right? When you're in a situation where you have a choice of getting something like an IV treatment that will that will benefit you and your health, and that won't put foreign, deep state, big pharma substances into your body, why is that a bad thing that it costs that much? So really, when people talk about expensive, when people talk about, oh gosh, I can't spend that, think about what you're saying. Think about what it is that God has given you. You have this amazing, remarkable body. There's nothing else like it. Your body is intelligently designed, beyond what you could imagine. And you're not willing, you're willing to put junk into your body, but you're not willing to invest in therapies that have been proven to work over 100 years. So that's just something to think about. I can't tell you what to do, but I think that it is important to have a mind shift, just start to rethink how it is that you approach your own healthcare, and really think about the fact that most of what's passed off to us as healthcare, um, uh, most of what's passed off to us as healthcare is actually just disease management, disease creation and management. So that's my little mic drop on that. Um, it is something that I think about a lot, but hopefully, realistically, when it comes to getting the basics of what you need for COVID, if you can't count on your doctor to call in prescriptions for the majority of those things, like if you know that you're going to be paying out of pocket for all of it, then I would budget a minimum of $500 per person to get through COVID. And I'm talking about if none of your prescriptions is covered. Okay. If you don't have any insurance. Now, a lot of times, if you don't have insurance and a prescription is called in, they're going to charge you way less. And then, you're going to get creative and you're going to use GoodRx coupons and things like that. So, so just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to shame anybody here about the mindset that you've had before. There's the system is complicated, but really start to rethink how you prioritize your spending when it comes to your health. Okay. And start to look at these therapies as a gift. The things that people are doing that aren't mainstream are so valuable. The reason that they're not mainstream and the reason that you have to pay out of pocket for them is because the military industrial complex basically just shuts them out of the process and vilifies them and makes people think that they're crazy. So, like for example, I said that if you Google ozone therapy, one of the first things you're going to see, like all over the first page, is the FDA says it'll kill you. I'm just here to tell you that it doesn't. And so, but they're all in collusion. They're all in collusion with each other to keep people from having access to these incredible therapies and therapeutics. And so, I hope that what I've been talking to you about today is helpful. I'm just going to look at the comments really quickly. I'm looking off to the side here. That's what I'm looking at. Vicky says, I've learned in the past year that most things are not what they seem, and I alone am responsible to question everything. Yeah, that's a good point. Now, somebody was talking about nebulizing hydrogen peroxide to increase your oxygen levels. Um, I'm not sure how that works. And they're talking about food grade hydrogen peroxide. Okay, H2O2 is hydrogen peroxide. Yeah, we're not even going to get into baby Mangala today. That man is evil. Yeah. So, in as much as it's possible, really, really consider what I'm talking about here with all of these therapeutics, with the things that are designed to help your body heal itself, and that includes superfoods. I haven't been on for 3 weeks, so I haven't talked about it. But one of the things that I was able to get down for the most part into my body the whole time I was sick was my amino acids, and that's part of our superfoods. Thank God for that, because that's my protein. So Millie says that she has the breakdown of the hydrogen peroxide. Okay, can you send it to Delia? Can you send it to Delia? Because I think we want to put that in the notes. So there's going to be a lot of notes today. Guys, I want to emphasize, I can't emphasize enough, get on the FLCCC website because they have so many resources. The other resource is Dr. Brian Ardis. He has a website. What's his website? I think it's the Dr. Hold on a second. drbrianardis.com, I think. Hold on. No, that's not right. Who has his website? Brian Ardis. Shoot. Of course, it's not coming up on Google. Oh, here we go. The drardisshow.com. Doctor, and it's ARDIS is his name. It's not artist. drardisshow.com. He has a ton of resources, especially for like post-COVID care, a lot of that stuff. Okay. So anything else? Okay. YouTube says, we are 70 plus. I'm trying to prep us. I take the daily Dr. Z protocol, live in Shenandoah Valley. What are the key search words for infusion center? Lobo Mom, I think the best place for you to go is going to be the one in Richmond. So can you write to me and I'll tell you, it's called Clinical Research Partners. It's in Richmond, Virginia. It's right off of 64. So yeah, you should go ahead and like I said, you guys, if you're in your 70s, you might actually be able to go in and get it prophylactically. Okay. So it's called Clinical Research Partners and it's on Forest Street in Richmond, Virginia. It's very easy to get to. Clinical Research Partners. So if you go to Google Maps, it's right there. Okay. And it's easy to get an appointment there. All right. Would you recommend having a home test ready? It couldn't hurt, Delia, because they're not always easy to find. And the one that I did, okay, here's a good question. Do you register it online? No. Will they contact trace? No. You just do it at home. It's personal. The one that I got was made by Abbott Labs. And there were 2 in there. So I used one for my dad. HCQ cannot be sent over some state lines. Try to find a pharmacy in state. Okay, thank you, Ryan. Let's see. Yeah, Millie is saying about the nebulizer. Try to get a legit nebulizer that has like it's a little machine that sits on the table. You turn it on, it has a hose, and it nebulizes the solution. Where will we be able to view the notes? I'm going to put the notes in on YouTube and on Facebook. So in Facebook, it'll be in the comments. Idaho says I have to be proactive because nobody I know is familiar with the protocol. And if I feel sick, I'm not going to feel like trying to figure it out at the moment. See, that's the key. Don't wait until you feel sick. Trust me, guys, I had most of my ducks in a row, but I didn't have everything. So, and then once I started to get sick, it's like I couldn't think. And then there's like this COVID brain fog that they don't even tell you about. So, yeah. Now, one thing that you can do if you think that you've had COVID is you can actually get tested for the antibodies. And I think another thing to test for is the T cells. So there's like two different things you can test for. Okay, how are we doing? I know the show's going long today. I missed you guys. I missed everybody. But I think this is valuable. So I want to just keep going if that's okay with you guys. You can always scroll through. When you're at the mercy of the system, they decide if you live or die. Exactly. For another discussion, Aunt Lizzie, should we have surgery and not plan in case of a need for blood transfusion? I'm afraid of getting the vax stuff from somebody's blood. I think that's a personal decision. That's something that I would definitely discuss if it were me with the surgery center. I think some people can donate their own, they can store their own blood ahead of time. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I think that's a good question. Yeah, we are responsible for our own health, food, and sickness. Yeah, we are. And that's the thing. A lot of what we are finding, as painful as it is over the last year and a half, 2 years, we are finding that as a culture, we've really been asleep. And the things that we really are responsible for and should have taken responsibility for all along, we just sort of, got this lackadaisical, lazy attitude that someone else is going to take care of us. Someone else is going to take care of our kids. Someone else is going to take care of our voting. Someone else is going to take care of all this. And we just sort of got sucked in to, work and, Netflix and just this mindset of just, passivity. And we've been snapped out of that pretty hard. So it's not a bad thing to be snapped out of that. It's a little painful because it requires more work and it requires more proactive. It's been, it's harder. It's just harder. It takes more work to do everything that I've described. It's not easy, believe me. But this is like the way it's supposed to be. Before the Industrial Revolution, before everybody got funneled into the cities and was, sort of dumbed down into being told that they had to be taken care of by the company, by the man, people were very self-sufficient. And that is something that we're needing to get back to. Speaking of which, I now know how to make my own campfire without a match. I'm pretty proud of myself about that. Fire in general, not just a campfire. Okay. Okay. So let me see. Okay. Comments. Thank you for sharing your experience and knowledge. Thank you, Mary Grace. Your information is invaluable. Delia says they are not taking blood. They're not doing vaxxed blood donations. Really? Are you sure? I thought it was plasma. I didn't know. I know that the places that buy breast milk from mothers are not buying vaxxed breast milk, at least some of them. So, oh yeah, here's the thing. Once you get all of these supplies, don't get rid of them. Hey, Todd, you're late. You're very late. Okay. Listen, here's what I wanted to say about the money side of things. So a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, you're doing out of pocket. Now, here's what I want to say. There are people who are going to be struggling to afford these things. So what some of us have done is we have actually been stockpiling supplies in case people need them. Like I know Millie has taken a nebulizer and budesonide to a neighbor, to somebody that needed it, that either couldn't get it in time or didn't have the money to do it. And so this is important. I really want to speak to those of you who have the resources and the ability to purchase extra. Like I said, you can go to alldaychemist.com. You can order things without a prescription. Now, there's a fine line, right? We're in uncharted territory. It's always better if somebody can be under the care of a qualified medical provider. In the absence of being able to do that, it could just be that the things that you have stockpiled could help somebody. You have to make that decision. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you what to do. If I share something with somebody, I'm not practicing medicine on them. I'm offering it. Okay, so just be careful about that gray area. But what I am saying is that uh, is that you may be the answer to somebody who either didn't prepare, can't afford to prepare, um, or just ran out of time. Okay, so think about that. If you have the resources, if you can afford it, you can't really go wrong by stockpiling extra of these things. Okay, so just think about that. And if you have extra and you want to reach out and let me know, or reach out to Millie, reach out to Delia, those of us who are really kind of, on the front lines and we're aware, like we're in all these chat rooms and we get messages, from people who say, my boyfriend is really sick or whatever, he had to go to the hospital, that kind of thing. Like there's people that just don't even know what to do or how to prepare for this. Sometimes if we know that somebody in the same town or in the same state or whatever has the medicine the person needs, it actually could save a life. So just think about that. Think about, preparing and getting extra for people who might need it. Yeah, Millie said this person was about to die, and it saved him along with the food grade hydrogen peroxide. Yeah. Okay, here's a great comment from Germany. Mary Grace, I'm in Germany, age 77, unvaxxed, super healthy, but you inspired me to call half a dozen unvaxxed friends tomorrow to ask, what will you do if? Thank you, thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. So glad. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty healthy too. Um, but again, because of the autoimmune condition, I think, because I was run down from all the traveling, I'm pretty sure I got the Rona from somewhere that I had been in the previous week. I mean, I was in all kinds of airports and, just whatever. I mean, yeah, so much of that. And then also just, because of my history with my lungs, right? So I think that different people have different vulnerabilities. Now, there's one thing that I think is key in all of this, and this is amazing, something that I observed. So my dad is 84. He was born in 1937, and he's the youngest of 12 kids. So let's just say he's been through some things, okay? Grew up poor, went in the military, signed up when he was 17, got sent off when he was 18. That was his life, right? And he's a pretty basic, solid guy. He's been through stuff. Well, when I told him that he tested positive for COVID and that he had a fever of like 102, this is what he did. I told him, I was like, yeah, you have the COVID. He goes like this. He goes, okay. That was all he said. And that really struck me because he doesn't watch the news. So he didn't know that old people are supposed to be terrified if they get COVID. He had no idea. So to him, it was just another thing. It was just like getting the flu or a fever or a runny nose or body aches. Like he had no grid for the panic and hysteria that has been pushed nonstop by the media. And so his attitude about the whole thing is, okay, that's it. And he trusts me, to help him do the right thing. But that's really key. And I would just encourage you, don't be scared, be prepared. That is key. He didn't go into this with any fear at all. He has no fear. He just living his life, you know? Yeah, kind of like the Amish. I mean, he watches TV, like he watches Netflix, he watches sports and stuff, but we don't turn on the news. And and this is something that's important. This is a real uh, good illustration of the things that you allow into your ear gates, into your eye gates, the things that you say, the things that you believe have a massive impact on your life. And, especially with the TV and the radio. I mean, the stuff that they are just throwing at you, the propaganda, it's toxic. Turn it off. I think most of you here listening already know that, but just don't even allow it. Don't even allow it into your consciousness. Cynthia said, I took the aminos, the cherry juice, and the superfood protein drink. Yeah. I couldn't take my protein drink. I did take my aminos. I'm telling you, I could barely stand up. So there was no making a shake for me at all. I am now, but during the time that I was the sickest, I mean, I probably should have had somebody feeding me, to be honest. But I made it. I got through. I mean, look at me now. I've got energy. So I'm better now. Somebody said we can't trust the government to take care of us. We need to take care of each other. Guys, I can't stress that enough. I really can't. Yeah, Todd says the news is more toxic than the Rona. That's absolutely for sure. And here's the thing too about as a believer, the Bible says by his stripes we were healed. And we are not under the power of sin and death. We are believers who have the life of Jesus in us. And so, we have life. And that is the thing to remember. The Bible says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear because you are with me. So even if you are going through sickness and there is, just this hovering presence of possible death, we're not afraid. We know where our hope is. We know. And that's the key. So make sure that you are standing on your faith in God and Jesus Christ in this process, because the Bible says over and over, do not be afraid. Do not fear. Fear not. And so that's the key. Okay. All right. I feel like I could talk to you guys all day. So I have been on for almost 2 hours here. Can you believe it? Thank you guys, everybody who has reached out during the time that I was sick. There's one thing I do want to say. A part of what has happened here is that there has been a little bit of like a processing issue with me. So if you write to me or text me or email or message me on Telegram, first of all, if you message me on Telegram, I might not see it for 3 weeks. That's the weirdest thing. Like if it's urgent, don't send it on Telegram unless it's like in my chat and you tag me. Don't send me a private message. I may not get it. info@marygracemedia.com. I'm asking everybody to be patient with me because some things I'm just not processing that fast, especially like the written word. I don't know why. But just I've had people get mad at me because I misunderstood things. Just please be patient. That's all I'm going to say. And if I don't get back to you right away, please be patient. Okay. Um, so I appreciate that. Let's see. Um, okay. Lobo mom. All my family, kids, grandkids are all vaxxed. I'm proactive in trying to prepare them. We'll update you on success of all day chemists. Thank you for all the intel shared. Exactly. Okay. Guys, listen. I forced my daughter to walk with me every day when she had COVID. She didn't want to, but she did, and it helps. The sun and the walks help a lot more than what people think. A friend of mine who's obese swears it saved her from COVID along with supplements and such. Yeah, that's a good point. So even when my dad has been the sickest, like I've made him get up and walk around so he doesn't get pneumonia. And today the weather's beautiful, so he was out on the porch. Delia, everybody, all of my listeners, I'm going to shift gears here for just a minute. The last broadcast that I did 2 weeks ago, I was telling you the story of our friend Matt, who in Arizona, who was hospitalized originally with diabetic ketoacidosis. He ended up testing positive for COVID. His wife eventually got in to see him. If you didn't watch that episode, I urge you to watch it. It was 3 weeks ago today on my YouTube, Facebook, Cloud Hub, Twitter, everywhere. I talked a lot about the things that God was doing during that time. During the time that I had COVID, I got a message from Shannon's sister, Lori. She said, please call me. That was Saturday, 2 weeks ago. She called me. I called her and she said, Mary Grace, I am really sorry to tell you that Matt passed away during the night. And I know that many, many of you were praying for him. And the situation was he didn't pass away from COVID. He died from heart failure. And it's a long story, but there were just a lot of complications that were happening with his body. I actually believe that there was medical malpractice involved. That's something that they're going to have to handle with their lawyers. I will tell you that that the presence of God and the miracles of God that we witnessed during this entire process have been amazing. And I also will tell you that Shannon and her children absolutely need your prayers. There is I think there is a GoFundMe that somebody set up, and I will try to get the link to that because obviously, he was one of the like half of the breadwinner for the family. I don't know the situation as far as insurance or anything like that. But I do know that his situation and everything that happened is not in vain. Because Lori and her sister Shannon, so Matt's wife Shannon, they are incredibly strong. They love the Lord. They are committed to making sure that Matt's memory and everything that happened in this process is not in vain. And so please keep them in your prayers. Please keep Shannon and their 3 children in your prayers. The process of grief is one that everybody has to walk through individually. We know he's in heaven. We know that his body is no longer holding him down, that he is alive and with Jesus and joyful and free. I didn't want to have to tell you this. I was pretty gutted when I got the news because let's face it, we fought really hard. We fought in the spirit, and so um, it's always hard because we're the ones who are here, right? I mean, my mom passed away a year ago. It's just the grief is something that you just go through. I can't imagine losing a husband and father to my children. It's hard. I'm not going to lie. It's very hard. But with God's help, with God's strength, she is going to get through this. She has to. She's a very strong person. She's gotten stronger through this process. Um, they do need your prayers. Okay. So, um, yeah. Thank you to everybody who prayed. Thank you to everybody who prayed for him. Really appreciate that. Going back to the question, can this information of everything we talked about today be put on your Telegram account? Yes. Yes, it can. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. I mean, you know, it's not an easy situation. So please keep them in your prayers. One thing that I have been encouraged by, because if you guys know Kat Kerr, she's on Elijah streams frequently, and she talks about heaven all the time. And I actually asked her, I think it was April, I was with her for a couple days, and I was able to ask her about a similar situation where people had been praying for a loved one who died and went to heaven. And, you know, like, because the people who prayed get confused. Like, okay, we prayed for him, we prayed that he would live, and he went to heaven anyway. And sometimes when somebody's really, really sick, something that Kat explained to me that really helped was that during the process of the sickness, for example, Matt was on a ventilator for um, over 30 days. And I believe that he coded at least a couple of times during that time, which means that he died. And what happens is that you go to heaven. And Kat said that, when somebody goes to heaven, once they go to heaven, um, it's a huge ask for them to come back, because heaven is heaven. Heaven is perfect. I mean, like there's no pain. They're in the presence of Jesus. They're joyful beyond imagination. And there are people who have died and gone to heaven and come back, because it wasn't their time. But she said that, for those of us who are here and who are left behind, that there shouldn't be guilt over, did we pray enough? Did we believe enough? Whatever. The truth is that some people they're just ready to go. And then once they get there, they're not coming back. And that's not a bad thing. Okay. So I hope I explained that well. So, it's hard for us because we don't see it. We don't experience it. We can pray that we would. Kat sees it all the time. She goes to heaven all the time. Kevin Zadai died and went to heaven, and he wanted to stay. And God asked him to come back, because he said there's work for you, that you're not done. And so he did, and he's here, and he's teaching now. And so um So Michelle was involved in praying for Matt a lot. She said, I feel very sad. My faith increased tenfold while praying for Matt. I felt God and saw some real miracles take place. He inspired my faith and prayers. His final gift was that to me. Yeah. I mean, he really, his situation really pulled a lot of us out. And it definitely brought Shannon into a place of courage that she didn't have before. So, God can work through all things. He works good through all things. Right? So, I think this is it. This is like a marathon show. I think I've done music shows that are long like this, but I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much, everybody who is who's here today for the chat. Like I said, when you come back and you're on the YouTube, please click on the live chat so that you can see all of the amazing and helpful suggestions that people have put in the live chat. Also, leave a comment on the show, on any channel that you come on the Facebook, on the YouTube, uh, in Cloud Hub. Please leave a comment and please share this. This information that we put out today could save a life. So I know it's long. If somebody, just tell them, just listen to the first 30 to 40 minutes, to an hour. You're going to get a lot of helpful information. So thank you again, guys, for being here. If you need to get in touch with me, info@marygracemedia.com. Do write to me about superfoods. With everything that's going on with the supply chain, you don't want to wait. You really want to have good, solid nutrition dialed in, organic, green superfoods. I have a voucher so that you can save over $100 off of your order for a 30-day supply. So you can write to me, info@marygracemedia.com, to do that as well. Okay, so that's it. I will be back. Guess what? Guess what? I'm going to be back tomorrow. So yeah, I'm going to be back tomorrow. And again, I'm not sure of the time. We're just taking things day by day here, but I do appreciate all of your prayers and I appreciate your patience and all the people that checked in and said, "Where are you, Mary Grace?" Also, make sure that you are on my Telegram, Mary Grace Media Official. That's my Telegram channel. Okay, have a great day, everybody. Thanks to my moderators, and thank you, everybody, for the amazing information that you shared with us today and for all of the good comments. We really do need to be proactive, take care of ourselves, take care of our families, take care of each other. Have a beautiful afternoon, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow.